welcome to the Football Breakdown. It's the Fantasy EFL preview show and it's Game Week 10. I'm your host Matthew South.
And I'm Iain Cooper.
Yes, hello, welcome everybody. We are in Game Week 10. We're almost a quarter of the way through the season already, which feels a bit mad. Iain, how you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. It's gone really quickly, hasn't it? But I do like this time of the season, especially for fantasy, where you just feel like you're starting to get to grips of certain patterns that are going on. You feel like you can start to predict what's going to happen on the weekend, who's going to score really well, but there's also that time where players have recently come back from injury. Maybe they've made a move and they've just started to break into the team, and there's some exciting players to talk about as well.
Yeah, agreed. The double game week for the championship means they're just a game or two behind most League One, League Two teams, so it feels like their data and stuff is a bit more reliable now. We've got an international break coming up again, which is gonna pretty much wipe out half the games and probably reset that, but it's still going well. It's still like a good time, and I'm kind of glad to have a full slate again to work from because last week was absolutely horrific for me, and I don't really want to talk about it myself. But do you have any thoughts on the week just gone?
For the first time in ages, well, this season, I do want to talk about a week actually. I finally had that sort of breakout week, managed to score 115 points. Really frustratingly as well, I forgot to change my captain over when building my team. I was originally going to go for McBurney. This isn't even after the fact. He was going to be my captain. Scored 22 points, so missed out on an additional 22 points. And accidentally left my captain of Lawrence Vigouroux, who got me 4 points, so doubled up to 8 points for not keeping a clean sheet in either of them. So yeah, frustrated with that one. Other points of note that were frustrating before I got to the good bits. Vestergaard only returned 5 points, not ideal there. And Gabriel Osho played in the first game, got 9 points, really happy with that, and then didn't play in the second game. So we'll get that one out the way. My midfield picks, Victor Torp got 12 points, and Barry Bannon getting 17 points. After mentioning him, wasn't really too confident with Sheffield Wednesday at all, but was really confident with him, and I'm glad that's seen why. And my partner with McBurney up front was Richard Kone. I believe he got an assist in the first game, managed to get 6 points, so that's kind of all I was, not really all I was expecting from it, but that was my minimum bar of getting 8 points from him. Happy with that. As for my teams, Swansea drew the first game, a 1-1, so came with 3 points. Thought, oh no, this is going to be typical. Luckily got an away win and scored 2 goals, so 9 points there, saved themselves. And as for Coventry, they won 3-0 in the first game, so 9 points for a clean sheet and 2 goals. And then the second game got 13 points, and I was like, I don't really know where that's come from. I didn't realise that you actually get an additional 2 points for scoring 4 or more goals, so got 13 points there. Delighted with that.
Yeah, I think they're the first team to get the full 13 that you can possibly get with which is a 4-0 or more win away from home. They've had some big wins already, but they haven't kept a clean sheet when they've had their big wins. So the fact they've done that is pretty mad. Yeah, I'll quickly run through my team. It was all I'll say actually is this is I was on about 55 points after the weekend, which was fine. It was average. Well, I say average, the average score was lower than that, but I feel like we're getting a lot of dropout. You get people dropping out, and the average score isn't always reliable. It seemed decent enough in the leagues. It wasn't mind blowing, but it was fine. I only added 21 points to that in midweek. Neither of my strikers started. Midfielders did nothing. Defenders didn't keep clean sheets. Goalkeeper didn't keep a clean sheet. Torp didn't really do anything despite a 4-0 win. So, yeah, basically completely just flopped in midweek. Cardiff lost. QPR drew 0-0. Just wasn't great. So after a pretty promising weekend, yeah, it wasn't a good midweek, and yeah, definitely just kind of want to move on to game week 10 because yeah, I feel like I'm having more luck when we have more players to choose from and can rely on League One, League Two most of the time. But we'll move into game week 10 anyway, and I believe I am kicking us off with the championship goalkeeper. So after saying that, of course, I have 2 championship picks. I'm gonna I'm gonna talk through them and hopefully actually land some championship points this week. So the keeper I want to talk about is Josh Griffiths for West Brom, who we actually haven't spoken about on the pod yet this season. I don't think. He started the season in goal. He's kept his place after, when they recorded from loan last year. He didn't really get much of a look in from January onwards. He had a really good performance in midweek as well against Norwich, where he kept a clean sheet. He got bonus points for his saves, and they came away with a 1-0 win. He has 3 clean sheets in 8 games for West Brom, and 2 of them have actually come away from home, which is exactly where they're going to be again this weekend as they travel to Millwall. So again, with a keeper, I'm looking at the clean sheet and I'm thinking West Brom at Millwall could be a good angle for this because first of all, Millwall have lost 3 of their 4 home games so far, and the games they've lost at home they haven't scored in. So they've got just one home game, one home goal, and one home win in their 4 games so far, and they've conceded 10 goals in that time. We can see a lot of action towards the other end of the pitch, and Griffiths could be quite quiet. The stats actually don't really tell that story. It's just more that they've conceded really easy goals whilst not being able to turn goals in themselves. So with the save points could be on. But coming off of Wednesday night when they lost 4-0 to Coventry, they registered 0 big chances and had just 3 shots on target. So they're not really doing much at home at all to show that they can actually really score a goal against a decent team, and West Brom are a decent team in this league. They look good. They're off the back of an away clean sheet, like I mentioned, and yeah, I think Griffiths is a good enough keeper to make the saves. I just don't. I just feel like that while this chance is here, I'm just gonna carry on this trend of Millwall not being able to score at home against decent teams, and West Brom being pretty solid all round.
Yeah, lovely. I'm glad you did. You find that easy enough to find a clean sheet? Someone that you're capable of getting a clean sheet in the Championship? Because I've certainly struggled in the defender pick. So it's interesting that
Yeah,
you
I thought it
found
was
it challenging.
horrible. I'm actually gonna yeah, I actually thought clean sheets actually across the leagues this weekend were quite
Yes.
challenging. I think it's a challenging week, and I think no spoilers, I'll get into it in my sub point pick as to why I've done what I've done. But yeah, the clean sheets really aren't lining up amazingly obvious this week. There were a couple of shouts, but it really depends how, and like this is the thing with looking at data as well. It really depends how you kind of manipulate it. Like it's really easy to kind of turn something into, you know, I can talk about the fact that Millwall have like scored one in 4 at home, and that sounds great. But if I told you the shot numbers they'd had in those 4 games, like that goes completely against what I usually go for because they've had a lot of shots in those games. They just can't score
Yes.
score with them. So yeah, I did find it tough this week trying to get a clean sheet, especially in the championship.
Yeah, and I've sort of found that with my defender pick, and I'm actually going back for a Swansea player after going Lawrence Vigoury as goalkeeper last week. I'm going for Cameron Burgess. It's a bit an alternative to Cabango. He does average a lower amount of points, but I've selected for a good reason. Just in the last 2 games, in that game week, he had 28 clearances and collected 6 points from each of those games. So it's a solid base to go off of. Also, like Swansea are good defensively. I know they haven't kept the clean sheets. Maybe they feel like they should have, but they don't concede a silly amount of goals either, which I think is a bonus. They're playing Leicester, which isn't a very efficient team, but certainly don't blow teams away with a lot of goals. They are quite low scoring. And a stat that I found quite helpful here, I'm going to be upfront. They do have the 4th most shots on target in the league, which does sound scary, but their XG actually sits them as 17th for the season, which is really low, showing that they don't create good goal scoring chances. So I just think that lines up nicely for this pick. And it's kind of when I don't have an obvious team or defender that I really want to go for, I just thought it was quite a nice combination of the 2 stats to look at Burgess for this game week.
Yeah, no, I think that's nice. Just looking here, his clearances per 90 at 8.88 is above that 2 point, 2 sets of bonus points for clearances, which is always nice. It's not the easiest to find clearances now they've upped it this year, but he looks like a
Yes.
solid option on that front. And again, it just comes into the clean sheets in the championship do look quite tough to come by this week. Into midfield then, and Imran Luzer's the one who has caught my eye. He's off back-to-back goals, and I don't want to just talk about someone who's he had an absolutely incredible double game week, but don't want to just lean too much on it. But he's basically just so central to that Watford team that everything kind of goes through him, and he missed a few games from suspension, but his average points this season is 10. He's getting 10 points a game, which is kind of hard to ignore, even if like it's not exactly like it was inflated by the weekend. The first game he was really quiet, and since then I think it's been like 9, 7, 12, 17. So we're looking at some decent points across the board. When you look at his per 90 stats, 2.9 key passes, 1.66 interceptions, and 0.83 shots on target, we're looking at some good bonus points. And those 0.83 shots on target are coming from 2.29 shots per 90. So, okay, he's not finding the target as often, but he is having shots. So you kind of more often than not back that on target to happen. And obviously, we kind of want a goal or an assist here. That's what we're after. Well, he'll most likely be on set pieces. He's that kind of creative player. He'll probably be on free kicks. That opens up that avenue, unless their strikers on free kicks. But he was hauled off after 35 minutes in midweek, so
Yeah.
whether or not he'll play is to be seen. And they are hosting an Oxford side who they're facing their second away game in 4 days, albeit it will be 2 London away games, so it's not the furthest distance for them, but it's still on the road again. They do only have like 1 loss in 5 games on the road, but they're pretty low down the table. They only have 1 clean sheet. If this game's tight, we could lean into those interceptions. Like I said, 1.66 is decent for an attacking styled midfielder. And also the fact that if Oxford do sit back, you've got Loser just pinging balls around them. Those key passes and potentially those shots are going to turn into assists and goals. So, yeah, I definitely think he's someone to keep an eye on, especially as he is pretty lowly selected going into this game week. I'm just going to double check what I had him at. Yeah, it's at 1.7%, which is low enough to kind of offer catch your eye and offer an option away from the more obvious picks.
Yeah, no, definitely. I did sort of have my eye on Loser going to this game week as well. I feel like if he had not had that suspension, a lot more people would have jumped onto him, and his selected number would be much higher. But whilst it's not, I think it's a good chance to take advantage of that as well. And going into the forward pick, it's certainly a name that will be on a lot of minds. It's Haji Wright. He's got 7 goals for the season already. And as we mentioned, Coventry have scored 7 in their last 2 games, so it's just a good time to go in for Wright. His numbers are fantastic too. His XG per 90 is 0.82. His shots per 90 are 3.59. And he has 8 touches on the opposition box as well on average. So just really good all-round stats there. There's not really one that's heavily inflated other than the others. They all line up very nicely. And Wright is also Coventry penalty taker 2 this season, which is just a massive bonus. Their opposition are Sheffield Wednesday. Sort of mentioned them a lot lately. Just like a fun side, but especially with this game being at Sheffield Wednesday, they're just really not good there. So the vibes couldn't be more opposite for Wednesday fans compared to Coventry at the minute. And I just kind of see this game going one way. So if with that being the case, I just kind of want to go for their main man this season.
Yeah, no, fully agree. Yeah, I think Wright is going to be very well selected going into this week, in my opinion.
They're going to go into League One and go for the goalkeeper. I'm actually going for Bradley Collins. He's had 3 league starts for Burton, has kept 2 clean sheets in those 3 league games, 2 of which were against Huddersfield and Cardiff, both away from home, so certainly impressive. I will admit that the one game that Collins didn't get a clean sheet, he conceded 4 goals to Plymouth. But Burton are relatively solid, and with Collins coming up with the goods when relied upon, okay, some of the games have been quite heavily relied upon, but he's certainly a keeper with a really high skill set for League One, so I'm happy to put him forward for this, for Doncaster. I could talk about Doncaster's attacking stats, but then I could have made that argument going against him for Huddersfield and Cardiff, so it kind of shows that he's a bit of an outlier for that team when you've got teams that are so dominant, heavy in possession, and really good attacking stats, that it does take something special to get past Collins.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's an interesting one. I had two defender picks and potential options. I'm gonna go with one of them because it's in the same game, but for the other team. So if we're
Nice.
both going to be wanting the 0-0 in this Doncaster Burton game, it's James Maxwell for Doncaster. He's sitting at just 0.2% after a pretty solid start to the season, and again, he kind of falls into this. It's a fixture I like on the defensive side of the ball for Doncaster, and it's one where Maxwell has decent stats, and I think we can get an advantage here at 0.2. Obviously the big pull here is the clean sheet. So Burton are off the back of a great win in midweek, but it was a tough game for them. They faced 20 shots. They came away with 3 points, but after having just 23% possession and one shot on target. And it was their first goal in almost 500 minutes of League One football. Of the 6 goals they've scored this season, 4 of them came in the opening 2 games. So they have 2 goals in the subsequent 7 games of the season and just a 1 goal in their last 5. So I'm not really banking on their attack to do too much. Like Webster is a good player and a threat to that clean sheet, but apart from that, there's nothing rare that's really worrying me in terms of this clean sheet. And when you have a Doncaster side who have they've had 2 clean sheets at home. They've conceded just 4 in 5, and they give up less than 10 shots a game on average. I just think the clean sheet chance is actually quite good here in terms of the comparative League One games. Maxwell himself is a solid bonus point player too. 4.63 clearances and 3.4 tackles are good for 2 bonus points, and those 3.4 tackles are edging closer to another bonus point, which we like to see. He's played the full 90 as well in the last 2 games, so minutes he should be fine for. And I think this is a game that I would expect to see most of the possession, most of the game, sorry, played in Burton's half. So I'm just hoping that there isn't a sucker punch here from Burton. It certainly will keep Collins busy for Ian, but I also
Yeah.
think there'll be enough here for Maxwell to pick up a few points and hopefully pick up a clean sheet. And he does have an assist to his name as well, so there is always that possibility too.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that pick. I can see the logic there. Going to midfield now, I'm going for Idris El Mizuni. He's just a complete inception man. It's 17 inceptions from his 8 appearances. Like, they are impressive. And I just think there's potential for a really big return, as in 3 of those games, El Mizuni has scored points for 4 or more interceptions. It's also just worth mentioning that he scored a goal recently as well. I go on about inceptions so much when it comes to midfielder picks. I feel like I really tend to do that in League One or League Two, and he's just the man for this week. I just can't really get around picking it as a stat when I don't see too many other options in midfield going into this game week for League One that we haven't really mentioned too much this season.
Yeah, have been interesting this year because I feel like they haven't been as prominent.
No.
I'm trying to work out if they haven't been as prominent, or we've just had so many goal scoring midfielders early on that with the extra point for the shots on target and the goal, we're just seeing a steer towards more attacking style midfielders. So it's good to hear one whose main avenue for points is interceptions, I suppose. Into the forward then, and I am going for I was torn between Talai and Devante Cole. We've talked about Laurent Talai a couple of times, I think. So while I think he's a good option this week, I'm actually going to talk about Devante Cole. 0.6% selection. He's kind of going a bit feels like he's going under the radar despite having like a really good start to the season. He's the highest average point scoring forward in League One. Okay, he's only played the 4 games, but it is Port Vale's last 4 games since signing. He has 3 goals and assist in that time. He's taken 3.42 shots with 1.99 on target. So that is all but 2 bonus points for the shots on target alone. Plus the fact he's scoring just under a goal a game going off his minutes. And their opponents this weekend are Northampton. They've conceded 7 goals in their 4 away games. I think as well that they did have a clean sheet and a 1-0 win in their away games, but it was against an Orient side who just didn't turn up that day, and it's kind of boosting how their away record looks across Um, Across the season, even though it's just one of the 4 games, the other 3 games they were pretty badly outplayed and looked terrible. So I'm kind of banking on Vale getting better. I think Northampton away from home haven't been that good, and yeah, I think aside who at home average 15.8 shots per 90 against the likes of Cardiff, Stevenage, Doncaster, Orient, good solid defences, are going to have chances against the Northampton side who are giving away chances themselves. So yeah, they're off the back of Paul Vale themselves off the back of 19 shots to 2 last weekend against Mansfield. Um, despite needing a last minute penalty. Devante Cole probably would have taken that penalty as well, but he was off the pitch by the time it came. I think, yeah, I think there's a lot going for Cole and there's a lot going for Vale, and I think just putting the two together makes a lot of sense this weekend.
Yeah, no, I like Kohler's pick. Looking when I was looking at keepers, I was actually looking at Northampton's keepers. They do have decent enough points returns. I, even as a zero point 0.1 pick, I was looking at Ross Fitzsimmons because he's just come in with Lee Burge being injured. And then I kind of realised that I don't really want to back a keeper that's going against Devante Cole. Not too concerned about Port Vale as a whole, but Devante Cole definitely the threat going into this week. So yeah, wanted to stay clear of that. So I'm glad that you ended up mentioning him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I for me it was one of the games that even though the table has Northampton above Vale, I think Vale are just so much better than Northampton. So yeah, it's definitely one I would be advising against the Northampton side of things on. Into League Two then, and yeah, again for the goalkeeper clean sheet angle. I did find this tough, but I do have one I think that I have found. It's Jake Eastwood for Cambridge. Cambridge do look pretty good on the defensive stat front in League Two, despite sitting like just above mid-table. The 9 goals they conceded isn't the lowest, but they give up the fewest shots per 90 at just 6.9, and their 2.8 on target against the game is only bettered by 2 other sides. So at home they've been pretty solid. They've conceded just 3 in 5 games from basically shit 6 shots a game. At home, and they face a Crawley Town side who have scored just 3 goals in 5 away games, coming from just 9 shots a game on average as well. They're not creating much against a team that don't allow teams to create much. They failed to net 3 times away from home this season. Cambridge have two clean sheets. It is the numbers just kind of the numbers are there. I think Crawley are getting better, but Cambridge don't really allow you to do much, and I feel like this is a game that's, if Cambridge get their way, it's going to be a 1-0 Cambridge win, and I feel like if that's the case, I'm just going to opt for the clean sheet in this game. Other than that, I'd probably stay clear of this one.
Yeah, nice. I did have another keeper in mind, but I'm going to mention him when I go on to my selected players going into the game week because I've got a kind of interesting angle going into that one. So we'll go into the defender pick, and as we kind of mentioned at the top of the show, I don't like the look of clean sheets, especially in this league. So I'm looking mainly at clearance numbers, maybe goals, that sort of thing. There are 7 defenders with higher clearances than Mickey Dimitru, but they're either injured or their numbers are heavily inflated from earlier on this season. So I am going for Dimitri. Interestingly, Crew haven't kept a clean sheet in their last 8 games, but I don't find that too concerning as Dimitri is still averaging a solid amount of points in that spell. Like there's lots of 5s and 6s there, and he did score, I believe, 14 points in his last game week for scoring as well. So there is that option. And interestingly, Lee Bell is looking to be more organised at the back. He has mentioned this recently. So whilst Harrogate do pose a threat, I do see it as a real opportunity for Crew to claim a clean sheet and playing it away from home as well. You'd expect Dimitri to clock an impressive amount of clearances. So I don't mind going for a team that maybe aren't so solid at the back when they have they do have an impressive defensive line, and playing away from home, you normally see defensive bonus points go up there. So that's kind of where I'm looking at.
Yeah, his bonus point numbers, or his stats for the bonus points anyway, are pretty good. You're looking at over 10 clearances a game, so you're banking on the two at least 2 bonus points there, and you're kind of hoping that a third can come from somewhere else, and then anything on top of that is just, either a massive bonus or come from like an inflated week. So yeah, you'd expect him for a decent enough return regardless. Into midfield then, and Jordan Davis for Fleetwood Town is who I want to talk about. He's got 3 goals and an assist in 5 games since joining Fleetwood at the end of August, and all of those are coming in his last 3 games. So he has a 12-point average over the last 3 games, which is maybe inflating my opinion of him, but I still think, we're seeing someone dropped down from after being released from Wrexham and playing a league where they've kind of been decent in before. His shots per 90 is really eye-catching though. It's 4.19. That's incredibly high, especially for a
So high.
midfielder. It's mad, and it's not even like that's just coming, that's inflated in one way or another. He's just having a lot of shots, and 1.57 per 90 are on target. He's also on 2 key passes per 90, so he's good for a bonus point on both of those angles, and you just hope that if he hits the target a bit more from his massive shot numbers, he could boost that up a bit more. And interception every other 90 minutes as well isn't too bad, but it's really the attack I'm looking at. Um, and in that case, we want to look at Fleetwood's opponents as well, and they're away to Cheltenham, who are just off the back of a 7-1 loss. So that then comes into it. They've conceded 12 goals in their last 3 games, 24 in their 10 games this season. At home, they haven't been as bad. It's only 8 goals conceded in 5 games, but in their last home game, they conceded 3 goals to Oldham. So they are getting worse defensively, not getting better. They give up more shots on target and shots in general per 90 than anyone else in the league. When you have a midfielder who's taking more shots than arguably the majority of the league, I want to get on him when he's facing the worst defense. So yeah, Jordan Davis in League Two is my midfielder.
Yeah, it's almost at a point where you look at who Cheltenham are playing this week and then go from there and find good players from the team that they're facing. It's kind of getting to that sort of level. So definitely concerning for them, but it's a big plus if you fancy Davis in your team. Going up front, I would argue he's a must, maybe even for the whole EFL, especially in League Two. Is Aaron Drinian. He's not scored under 8 points for 6 games now, 6 game weeks now, and Swindon lead the list for the most goals per 90. His XG is 0.43, which is very respectful, but is 2.89 shots on target, really high in this league. And Newport have one of the worst defences, conceding. Look at their conceded per 90, it's 2 goals, and they sit third lowest in the XG conceded, and have interestingly conceded the most amount of penalties in the league as well. So we've kind of got another matchup where you were looking at a midfielder that's got a really high shot count. I've just got a forward that scores a really good amount of goals against another defence that are just really poor. So you can kind of see why I've gone along with this.
No, 100% agree. I think the best pivot I can do here is tell you that both of my strikers are the 2 strikers you've spoken about in my team this week in Drinan and Wright, because I just think they're the 2 must-haves. Now I fully agree on that front. Not to disregard my own striker pick, who I have not already forgotten, is Devante Cole, but who I was also considering, but I don't know, there's something about Drinan that means you want him in your team, and Haji Wright is almost in that territory of he's so good you can't leave him out.
Yeah.
Like kind of like early season, like players we've seen in the early season, like Sanders for MK Dons, for example, who was just returning ridiculous points until he got injured. Like Wright's in that kind of category of, I just feel like you just need him, especially against Sheffield Wednesday. So I'll give you a rundown of how. Well, actually, no, we'll get into our sub-point pick first before we give you a rundown of the team, because I don't want to spoil it. Ian, do you want to tell me yours?
Yeah, so I feel like it's a little bit left field, but it's certainly a player that everyone's going to know. I've gone for Adam Reach for Lincoln. He counts as a midfielder on EFL Fantasy, but he is playing left back for Lincoln. He's only had 3 starts. He's only had 4 games, but his last 3 games have been from the start. He has 1 goal, 1 assist already, and his averaging points are just really out there from his 3 starts. It's 8.3 points in those, so just a really high total, even if it isn't a short window. He's a player with a lot of quality. He averages over 1 shot per 90. He reminds me, especially of last year, of Luke Leahy, but kind of the other way round, where he was a defender on the game that was playing midfield. It's the other way around, so you're not too concerned about the clean sheets. But playing at left back, he's naturally going to have a higher chance of getting interceptions not really being realised just yet. But it is one interception per appearance. That's fine. And playing at home to Exeter, just an ideal fixture for him to have. I'd feel a lot of the ball, so going to have an influence going forward there.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned Luke Leahy is almost like his current Wickham teammate Taylor Allen in a way when he was a midfielder last year,
Yes.
playing left centre back. Admittedly, not left back itself,
No,
but
but that's a good comparison, definitely.
yeah, had that kind of ability to come forward and just whip the ball in and also pick up interceptions. Yeah, no, I do really like that Adam Reach pick. Yeah, it was actually mentioned on. I saw someone talking about Adam Reach on the socials a few weeks ago. I can't remember who it was now. But yeah, it's good. Yeah, good to kind of get that name on the pod now. For myself, I've also gone a bit. I don't know. Um, I feel like probably could potentially frown a lot about my pick, but it's going to fit into the theme of. I think it's hard to predict where a clean sheet's going to come from this week, so I'm going to take my sub point pick in goal.
Yep.
And I'm going to bank on, despite us naming three keepers, I'm going to pick the clean sheet from my sub point pick. And I said two of the keepers myself, so the fact I've basically spoke about three keepers on the pod is bizarre. But Alex McCarthy, Southampton, 0.1% selected, is in the team. Bazunu's out. He's played 2 games, only has 2 points on average because he's done nothing in those 2 games. But I'm going to break this down and try and convince you as to why I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
this is a good pick. First of all, like we mentioned, I think that the keeper picks are really tough this week. I do. I think the clean sheet's hard to come by, so that definitely does weigh into why I'm suggesting McCarthy. Like Griffiths looks good for West Brom, but they do give away chances. If Millwall just score one of those chances, the clean sheet's gone. And I've said so many times it's so hard to get save points to overtake your clean sheet points. You effectively need 9 saves to make up for a clean sheet. That literally happens for like one keeper a week, if that. So not going to be trying to gamble on that. So that was kind of the first reasoning. The second reasoning is that it's kind of like a pro Southampton slash anti Derby stance. And it's probably not the first time I've made an anti Derby stance on the pod. I've definitely gone against them a few times before, and their late goals keep on costing me, but they can't keep getting away with that. Derby just rank really low attacking wise across the league. At home, they have 5 goals in 4 games, but 3 of them came against Coventry in a bizarre 5-3 game earlier this season. So I'm just going to not disregard it, but that's kind of just the way Coventry games go. They're a bit chaotic. Southampton aren't Coventry, so if you take that away, it's 2 goals in the last 3 home games, of which we're looking at a late goal versus Bristol City, no goal versus Preston, and a late goal versus Charlton. 7.88 shots per 90 is the lowest in the league. 2.12 on target is the second lowest in the league. They're one of the poorest attacks out there, and the first few weeks of the season are kind of just weighing up there, boosting those goal numbers, but they're not creating much at all, and they're kind of smash and grabbing a lot of stuff, and I just don't think that can carry on. Southampton, I think after losing to Hull 3-1, have actually come out of that looking a lot better. They've almost reset and started to build from the back and look a lot more solid. So in the last 2 games since then, they held league leaders Middlesbrough to just 7 shots with one on target. Middlesbrough did score and it was a draw, but they kept that XG really low, and that's a Middlesbrough side who have been really good this season. In midweek, they went to Sheffield United and they kept them to just 8 shots and 3 on target. That's a rejuvenated, wilder Sheffield United who they beat fairly comfortably in midweek. And I'm kind of going off the fact that I think if they've come out of those 2 games with 4 points, they should be better than they have been. And Derby are just sitting 21st and don't look very good. So I think in theory, Southampton versus Derby should be a game we're looking at. I don't think anyone is because of how poor Southampton have been, but I think we should be because I think the numbers are starting to turn and I can get their goalkeeper at 0.1%. Sorry, that was a really long-winded argument, but I feel like I had to make it because I feel like it's probably the most the most kind of not controversial, but out there pick I've had to convince so far for the sub point area.
No. It was a good argument to the point where I was almost thinking, you know what, maybe I should start looking at Southampton a bit more in the Championship pick. Looked next week and forgot they had an international week, so I was like, okay,
Yeah,
we'll put that
yeah,
we'll put that argument on the back burner. But for this game week, especially, I can definitely see the reason behind it. And
yeah,
I'll tell you what, I'll kick you off my team because we've got a fifth keeper to talk about. I'm not going to talk about him too much because you kind of mentioned it when you went for your League Two midfielder, but I've gone for Jay Lynch in goal just because Cheltenham are really shocking. Like their average goals per 90 is 0.4. It's just when I couldn't find a keeper that was so outstanding, I just go against a team that have really poor attacking numbers. I've got a defensive pairing of Cameron Burgess and Mickey Demetriou, midfield pairing of Adam Reach, and I did go for Imran Loser as well, and forward picks of Haji Wright and Aaron Drinian, which is probably no surprise to anyone when they're listening through this pod. How about you, Matt?
nice. Yeah, I have the same strike force. I'm going to work backwards. I have the same strike force of Drennan and Wright. I also do have Loser in, as I spoke about, and I do have Jordan Davis, though I do have an eye on Cozier Dubry still. There's part of me who just can never shake if I want him in or want him in my team or not. And Bowen at home to Peterborough, there's definitely some stuff to talk about in this game that unfortunately we just kind of don't have time to talk about this week, but could be an option. In defence, James Maxwell, as I mentioned. And I did mention I liked Vale. I couldn't pick Cole because I just outvoted him for my strikers. So I've got Connor Hall in defence instead for Port Vale. I do think that whether they're too good for Northampton or not, I don't think Northampton are going to trouble them at all. So, going to take the defender, and obviously in goal, Alex McCarthy. Do you want to hear what the Football Breakdown most selected percent team looks like this week?
Yeah, go on. We haven't mentioned it for a little while. I'm interested to see after now we're on to game week 10, sort of what the most popular players are looking like going into this week.
Yeah, it's good that there was quite a bit of a percentage change kind of going on over the last couple of weeks with the internet with the double championship. So this is kind of like a reset this week, but percentages are kind of back. So in goal, Nathan Trott for Cardiff. The back two is Connor Barrett for Walsall and Joe Lowe for Huddersfield. Then it would fall into a midfield three, going off of the most selected players ends up being three midfielders. It's Ollie Norwood, Cozier Dewberry, and Owen Bailey for Doncaster, who is the most selected player in the game right now. Up front, Aaron Drinnan would take that place. So, we both have Drinnan in, I mentioned Cozier Dewberry could be in my team, but away from that, we actually have no one. None of those players in our teams going into this week, which is interesting. I have had a look, and last week it did beat me, so I don't even know if we
Ouch.
changed the team for that. And
That's
it
fine.
still beat me.
I
Yeah,
think it's still ahead of me in the league, so I'd much rather be beaten by one game week than it be ahead of me in the league.
yeah. This is true. This is true. I would take the one game
Actually,
we
I'm saying
lost
that
to it.
I'm joint with it, so I'm gonna say that I'm ahead on goal difference from.
You're ahead on count back.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's exactly it.
that's what it is. Right. Shall we get into the final section of the show, which is our teams to win? Who are you going for this week?
I'm probably going to rattle through this pretty quickly. Actually, I'm going for the two teams that my strikers play for. I'm going for Coventry City and Swindon Town. Just really want the bonus points from 2+ goals. Now I've had a sniff of 4+ goals. I really want to get that back, and both being away games, just really good potential for some high points here. No surprise if I go into the bet and put £5 on that, it returns £12.44, so certainly not ideal. But I'm not going to get too experimental just yet on getting some good returns until I start seeing some good points returned and really try and finally climb up this league, especially following from a good game week last week. So yeah, going for Coventry City and Swindon Town.
Very nice. Exactly the same for me.
Yeah, there's just no. I just don't see.
Don't see it.
You'd have to spend about a good 5-10 minutes if you had gone for two different teams, maybe one different team, never mind two. So yeah, I can really see why most people would align for this matchup here.
Yeah, 100%. I've been huge on, I think, every single week going double away. Like I just think the away points are there. You may as well try and go for them. I've gone against Newport a few times at home, and they always I've got those off. They've lost those games and they've conceded a few goals in the process. They just annoyingly usually get that odd goal to cost the clean sheet one. Same with Sheffield Wednesday. I've gone against them 2 or 3 times this season. Only last week with QPR did they finally turn up at home for a bit. Other than that, been kind of reeling in those points pretty happily. And the fact then that Newport and Sheffield Wednesday are at home to two teams that I also really like, I feel like, you know, obviously you could call it a mile off because you picked them yourselves, but I feel like even if it was like, who am I picking this week, you would have been able to just do this section for me. Two teams I like against two teams I don't rate. So,
Yeah.
yeah, listen, yeah, it's Swindon and Coventry for me as well, and I'm sure it's going to be Swindon and Coventry for a lot of people. Maybe the away puts them off. Personally, I think that just makes it maybe those extra 2 points even better. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the show this week. Thank you everyone for listening. Do follow us on the socials. We will have our, any changes. We'll have our full teams out, and any football chat over the weekend will be on there. We're on X at FBBD Pod. We are on Bluesky at Football Breakdown. You feel free to leave us a comment on this and give us a like as well. Thank you everyone for listening again. Thank you, Ian,
Thank you, Matthew.
and take it easy.